Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aurora City Council's Committee of the Whole meeting. It is Monday, May 26th, or Tuesday, May 26, 2015. Ms. Wyckoff, please call the roll.
Ms. Barner? Ms. Grandillo?
Here.
Mr. Hatridge?
Here.
Mr. Horvath? Here. Mr. Kovach?
Present.
Mr. Cudley?
Here.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mr. Vaca?
Present.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Thank you. The first item of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the May 11th, 2015 meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt those minutes. Any additions, comments, corrections? Okay. All in favor of those minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And Mr. Kovach is abstaining. All right, those minutes are adopted. Moving on, item number 4 is the Finance Director's report. Mr. Paul?
Yes, you have my report, and I think for the next 6 months, you're going to hear me just concentrate on those important factors again. Those important factors are cash balances. You got that report on a monthly basis, and we group them by funds, we group them by types of funds, and you'll just, at the bottom of each of those categories, you see the cash balances from last year compared to the current year. And again, looking at all of those, you see that we're in a very healthy position with regard to cash positions in all of those groups of funds. The second thing is your income tax collections, and your income tax collections, again, are running $370,000, $380,000 better than last year at this point in time. Another very crucial factor because, again, we budget generally on the basis of what last year's collections were. So, again, we're running ahead of that at this point, and I would expect that we will continue to run ahead throughout the year, although not as maybe a fast a pace as we have in the early parts of this year. The other important thing to look at is when you look at the general fund data that is shown in this report, you'll see that with 1/3 of the year done, we're at almost 35% of revenue collected and 31% of expenditures. So in both cases, revenue and expenses, we are exceeding the budget with revenue, and we're under the budget from an expenditure standpoint. So the city is operating in a very good position at this point in time.
Thank you. Any comments, or questions for Mr. Paul? All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to new business, item A is the natural gas endorsement program with Constellation Energy. I believe Mr. Burns, you're here to discuss that.
Thank you, Mr. Cudley. Last week I had the opportunity to come in and speak to the mayor, finance director, and Ms. Humbert to go over in great detail your natural gas bids for your next program starting in the fall. Tonight I was asked to come in and give you that 30,000-foot overview. I've passed out kind of the salient points of the bid process. Just want to touch on those and answer any questions you might have. Your current program with Constellation is going to end this October, so as we do for the past any number of years, we go out every 2 years, ask all the suppliers to bid for your business and present our findings and recommendation. Constellation this time was again the lowest, best overall bidder. When we look at suppliers for your program, we look at their pricing, terms and conditions of an agreement, things like early termination fees being zero, their ability to handle calls from the residents, print attractive material that's easy to understand, et cetera. So Constellation was the lowest best bidder. You had a rate that served you well the last couple of years, but coming out of this winter, natural gas prices have fallen. So I'm pleased to say that if we were able to set a rate today, your price would be about 25% lower than what you've enjoyed for the last couple of bitterly cold winters. On the back of your handout, I've provided you with a series of indicative price quotes. So when we go out for bid, what we're really looking at is getting a formula put in place where we can watch wholesale natural gas prices on the New York Mercantile Exchange and watch them go up and down. And when we see a good buying opportunity, we have a formula that's put in place that we can execute to set a retail rate. If we were to set that rate today, we would be looking at a 12-year rate. These are indicative prices. They're changing as I'm speaking, but $346.3 per MCF, a 24-month fixed rate. If we wanted to lock that in for a 2-year duration, it's trading around $358. So those prices are at historical lows. Anytime you're below $5, that's a very attractive rate. When you get below $4 an MCF, you're talking about historical lows that we've not seen in our lifetime. That has to do with all the natural gas in abundance in this area due to fracking. So what we're asking you to do tonight, since you have an agreement already in place with Constellation that's been vetted by the law department, there's an amendment that you're asked to sign, or an ordinance that you're asked to pass that would give the mayor the authority to enter a 2-year extension to that agreement with a new pricing formula. So once that contract amendment is signed, my office will start sending Mr. Paul, the mayor, Tracy, weekly price quotes. If anyone at City Hall likes where the prices are, they can say, okay, Mark, let's lock in our rate right now. Typically what happens is sometime between now and early August, I would reach out to them and say, for these reasons here, I think now's the time to buy, set in your rate. And letters would go out in September time period, and residents would have 30 days to sign up. People that are currently in the program would get a letter that says, look, if you like this new rate, do nothing, you'll stay in it. If you don't want it, contact Constellation and you won't be renewed. And then there's another group of people that are shopping with another supplier. We want to make sure everyone in Aurora is invited to receive this low rate. So they would get a letter that says, if you want to join, pick up the phone, fill out a business reply card, go to the internet and sign up. So that would all take place in the fall. But before that can happen, we need City Council to act on an ordinance that would allow the mayor to sign that contract amendment. So that's the 30,000-foot view. It's good news. Your prices were low. They're going to be even lower this year, much better than what a resident can get on their own for fixed rate, price protection, budget certainty, and no early termination fee if people want to get out of the program at a later date.
Okay. Any additional information, Mr. Paul, our mayor, that you want to add? Okay. Any questions? Yeah, can I get a copy? You can get a copy. All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Okay.
Enjoy your evening.
All right. There's no action on this because it's already on council's agenda for later on this evening, so it was already put on by Councilman. Moving on to new business item B, employees generally, part-time dispatcher. Chief? Hire, do you want to address this, please?
Yes, members of council, the police department's just requesting to hire a part-time dispatcher. We have 6 full-time. We had 4 part-time that we utilize to fill in for vacations and things of that nature, and we're down to 2 part-time, and we just want to add one for the summer months, or add one so that we can cover vacations and things of that nature for the summer.
Any comments or questions for the chief? It's being asked that this be forwarded to council for action this evening.
Move to forward council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C under new business is additional firefighter paramedic position. Chief Barnes.
I'm asking you to approve an additional full-time firefighter paramedic that was included in the 2015 budget. We funded a half year to start in July. This person would take the place of a senior firefighter who would get assigned a day shift to work to fire prevention, fire education, and would also be available during our peak times to help answer calls.
Okay. Just for informational purposes, how many full-time firefighter or paramedics do we have?
We have 15 on shift. We have assistant chief, me. So we have a total of 17, 33 part-time.
32 part-time?
33.
33.
Yep.
Okay. Any comments? Mr. Horvath?
Chief, I just want to make sure, this is now coming out of the general fund and not the fire levy fund.
Correct. Yeah, the fire levy's pretty much maxed out. It takes care of 5 full-time firefighter paramedics this time, plus our secretary is also paid out of there. It's also the fund that we use to replace all our apparatus and all of our equipment.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Yeah, Chief Barnes, I appreciate you answering all my questions.
Sure.
Help me understand, you had discussed having somebody do testing. Who exactly would be doing the testing? Would it be the new person or?
Testing for what? For the position or for?
No, I'm sorry, inspections,
Inspections?
yes.
John, the Assistant Chief, John Schmader, currently does all the testing for new businesses, plan reviews, and tries to do as many current businesses and industries that we can. Because of the new construction that's gone on and the increase in the number of businesses overall, he's not been able to get into all the businesses and get them inspected in a timely manner. And with him tied up doing this other stuff, I'd like to get somebody else in and get the existing businesses checked in a more frequent manner.
So who, would this new hire do that job, or?
No, the new hire would backfill for a senior person that wants to come to day shift, somebody that's certified to do fire inspections, because that is a certification. So it does take a special certification to do that job.
So help me understand then why instead of a new hire, we can't have two part-timers filling that same role?
You'd have to find a part-time person that has that certification, that's willing to work that job, and to split it, the number of hours, you'd have to split between two if you don't want to pay benefits because of the Health Care Act. You have to limit to 30 hours a week any part-time employees. And that's what's hurt us in the past. I've had to add more part-time employees. I used to get 53 hours a week out of my part-time guys. Now I can only get 30 hours a week out of them. So to have consistency and have somebody that's certified and really knows the businesses, you know, the full-time person's the way to go.
Yeah, I'm just really torn on this. When we increase the head count, and we just increased the head count last month, and I mean, I told you, if we just take it out 20 years, full-time or part-time at 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, we're looking at about $37,000 a year versus $116,000 a year. Over the course of 20 years, that's close to $1.6 million difference. Still not sure. I mean, I know how good you are with money and what a great job you do, and I'm still not sure what I'm going to do, but it is hard to swallow this long-term decision, coupled that with the other headcount we just added recently. But I think that's all the question I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, before that, I get to you, I think it's important to remember that this is coming out of the fire paramedic.
Nope,
That's
no,
not,
it's not.
it's coming out
No,
of
it's
general
not.
fund.
General
It's
fund.
Okay, general fund
Correct.
money. Okay.
Last time I had an employee came out of the general fund was in 1998. So we've added no one since. Last time we've had new employees come out of the fire levy was 2002.
Right.
So we've been able to maintain for a long time here.
Mr. Hatridge.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How long does it take to get this certification, Chief?
It's an 80-hour course.
Okay. Is this paid for by the employee or by the city? Reimbursement?
It would be employed, if it's already an employee, it's paid for by the city.
Okay. Just a comment. I appreciate your view, Ms. McDougall. But when we're talking about a full-time position that would perform safety inspections for your businesses and residential, if it would come to that, because actually Assistant Chief Schmader was at my home and did a fire inspection. I had some additions put on. I think the fact that we haven't had a full-time person in a long time at the fire department, but to fill this position and the amount of businesses that have come into Aurora in the past 10 years, I think that Mr. Schmader, or Assistant Chief Schmader, is really, he's got more than he can chew right now, I think. And so I think this position is long overdue, to be quite frank with you. And I don't have a problem with this at all. Thank you.
Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, would it be safe to say that we're having a more difficult time finding part-time people that we can shuffle in and out thanks to the Affordable Care Act and the fact that we can only work these guys 30 hours as opposed to 30 plus?
Yeah, some of the problem is when you get a younger person maybe that's looking for a full-time job, he's willing to come in and get the experience, and then as soon as he gets hired somewhere else, I lose that availability. I lost a guy to Canton, I lost a guy to Columbus, they're all trying, starting out as part-time, to work their way up. Most of my part-time employees are full-time firefighters elsewhere. So when they come into work, they may be just getting off the shift, they might not get there till 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock. If they are going on shift, they may have to leave early at 7 o'clock. During that time, this person and John and I end up jumping on the squad if we have to help cover, calls during that time too.
So what we're seeing is these other cities hire away our part-time guys for their full-time positions because they're having to do the exact same thing that we're having to do here. They're
Correct.
having to add these full-time positions.
Yeah, and the pool gets smaller and smaller. A lot of these guys work multiple departments. I got guys that are on 2 other departments at the same time, and their schedules get thinner and thinner for them.
Yeah, and that's my concern. So I'm all for this because we got to make sure we have the most talented in the city that we can possibly get a hold of for our residents. And this is going to be a full-time position during the day with all of the increase in business that we're seeing come on. I know the Assistant Fire Chief Schmader, I know he's running his legs off. I've talked to him. And if what happens down at Jogga Lake happens in the time that we think it's going to happen, we're going to need this person on staff in order to be able to get all these things completed in a timely manner and allow these businesses to occupy their space and start to conduct business.
Mhm.
Thank you. No other questions.
Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to just add to the long view. This is planning for transition as well. We are trying to meet some immediate needs and a growth in the number of inspections that are required, but also we face the real possibility that Assistant Chief Schmader will be eligible to retire, I think, in 2 years, if he's not already. Never mind the chief, but that's a whole nother discussion. But the chief and I have talked about the need to cultivate this expertise for transition purposes, frankly. And that's something you just can't do it's harder to do on a part-time basis. Thank you.
Mr. Paul?
Yeah, I think Amy is right. I mean, this is one of your biggest decisions, and that is adding staff. And again, staff does come year after year after year after year. But again, you've seen the surpluses that we've had. And as I sit here now, I cannot say that we won't have another surplus this year, which it looks very, very good that we will, sufficient to handle something of this nature. But again, that gives you some of the responsibility down the line. If our revenue dips in a year or two in a row, you have the decision of what you should do in eliminating employees or reducing employees for a period of time. And that, yeah, of course, but those decisions are one of the major decisions that the mayor and council have to make.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Ms. Grandillo?
Thank you. Just so I am clear, the person you're going to hire is going to take one of the shifts, so you can move someone from the evening to a day shift to go do this. You're not going to hire this person and put him right out doing these inspections.
Correct.
Okay,
The newer person will be a certified firefighter paramedic, and he will go on shift to handle calls, will be his primary responsibility. I have a few of the older guys that are certified already as a fire safety inspector and can come and take that job and step in and work with John and be trained to do that.
Okay, that's what I thought I was reading, but
Yep.
I wanted to make sure
You're
that was
correct.
clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kovach?
Mr. Chairman, to the chief, you just answered my one question about having people already certified on staff. Are any of them interested in moving to that position?
Yes.
Okay, so we're pretty well covered. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Grandillo?
Sorry. I don't usually talk twice. And just probably more for Mrs. McDougall to think about with all the new businesses we've had coming in and the income tax, so we are getting more income. That's the need for this person. We can't expand and grow and get all this new income tax, but not service them correctly. And I know at my business, the fire inspector comes in every 2 to 3 months just to make sure everything's how it should be. So I think it's well worth it in the long run. Thank you.
Right, I was going to add to that it's important to remember that our fire force not only is out there to fight fires and save lives, but they're also to do the inspections. And if our current inspector is having a hard time just keeping up with the new and not being able to get to the ones that are already up and running for their yearly inspections, then it becomes a critical issue and definitely something that we have to act on. So, all right, we have a motion to forward this.
Second.
And this will go to our regular agenda. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Let's go on to council's regular agenda. Item D, under new business, is the appropriation of funds for a fishing derby. Mr. Kraus.
Move to recommend, Mr. Chairman. Second.
It's been moved and forward to recommend that, and it's being asked that this go forward to council for action this evening. Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every year, or at least for the last few years, we've been fortunate to get a $500 grant from the state of Ohio for their Step Outside program. So we've received that grant. We're just now asking for that money to be appropriated back to the budget line so we can appropriately spend it for the upcoming event.
Okay. Comments or questions? We have a motion and it's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. I know some of us are chuckling because we go from, you know, the issue of discussion of a firefighter, paramedic, and fire inspector, and then to, you know, a fishing derby. So it's a wide range of things that we're asked to consider in any one evening. So just have to keep your mind open. New business item E is the approval of the 2016 tax budget. Mr. Paul.
Yes, again, the tax budget is twofold. It provides information to establish, first of all, the tax rate, residential and commercial tax rate, real estate tax rate for next year. And the second purpose of the tax budget is it provides an estimated resources, that is the amount of dollars that council will be able to appropriate in the following year. So with regard to the real estate tax, this same type of form that is before you is also prepared by the county and the school board. And the combination of all three of these factors is what will make up your real estate tax rate for the following year. And so the city is presenting its numbers, and its numbers have obviously been declining because primary thing that makes that up is debt, and our debt has been relatively stable, and we've been paying off the principal and interest and so forth. That continues to decrease. And ours is probably the lowest part of the real estate tax rate is the city's portion in comparison to the county and obviously the school board.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mr. Paul?
Just a quick question.
Mr. Hattridge.
So, cutting to the chase, we're not going to get a tax increase on our real estate taxes this year?
Well, I can't say. I don't know what the county and the school board position is. From the city standpoint, you're not going to get
Okay,
it.
for cities, okay, thank
correct.
you. City's point. Okay, thank you.
And it's being asked that this go forward to council's regular agendas. It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, this motion passes and will go on to council's regular agenda. Item F under new business is the audit contract approval with James G. Zupka, CPA Incorporated.
Yeah, the James
Mr.
Zipko
Paul.
was selected as the auditor for the city of Aurora for a 2-year period by the state auditor. This is something, we have a small input. The state uses a 100% formula, and ours input gives us, I think, 5% of that. So we have very little say in it, and most of the determination of our auditors is made by the state of Ohio. And so they have selected Mr. Zupka, and the mayor has worked with them in negotiating a 2-year agreement, and that's what's in front of you this evening. They have already completed most of their work for the 2014 year, and we need this again passed ASAP, since they should have that in effect before they finish their work.
Okay, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Paul, these are the folks that the state chose to take over for them in the absence of their desire to continue auditing us when we were not having any issues, correct?
That is correct. The state, again, their manpower was down, so they put this out to the field. And I think there were about 5 or 6 companies that competed for the audit, and Zupka was awarded the contract.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And it's being asked that this go forward to council for action this evening. It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, that motion passes. This goes on to council's agenda for action this evening. Finance are under new business is item G, contract for Oak Group Incorporated as plans examiner.
Yes,
Ms. Januska?
Mr. Chairman, the present plans examiner, Charles Beauchesne, has resigned. He is moving back to Columbus. This gentleman and his company were recommended. They do the city of Kent, they do Twinsburg, he does all of Portage County. And we're asking, rather than adding him as a part-time employee, we're going to do a yearly contractual basis. We have spoken with him, we feel this will be a good fit, and we're asking for, to continue the department for this to
Okay.
move forward.
Right. Mayor, did you want to add anything? I'm sorry, I thought you were raising your hand. Okay. And it's being asked that this be forwarded to council for action this evening. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Horvat, question.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Nuska, how does this guy compare to the other one we had, price-wise?
Price-wise, he is more expensive, but because he is on a contractual basis, we are not paying PERS, Medicare, several others, so it evens out
Okay.
in that respect.
Thanks.
After we're done, before we adjourn.
Okay. Seeing no further comments or questions, we have a motion to forward this to council for action this evening. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Did you have a question?
It was already moved
Yeah, it
in
was.
second.
Yeah, it was already. Okay. All right. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Mr. Hatridge, you have something you want to add?
Yes, to kind of bring this new inspector, chief, into the equation here, could you give us an estimate? I know there's a ton of businesses here, but how many businesses do we have that would require fire inspection? I know that with all the small businesses, I know we're talking about probably hundreds. I saw the list a couple of years ago, and it's quite extensive. You don't realize how many small businesses are here in Aurora. I was amazed when I first saw it, seriously. And all those small businesses, if they have a fire alarm system of any type, even if it's a suppression system on a restaurant, it has to be inspected. So I just kind of wanted to bring that into the game here. Thank you.
And there's public buildings too. 'Cause
Yes,
I know that
exactly
the
right.
Aurora Memorial Library has to be inspected.
Oh, yes.
All different aspects, the schools, so it's.
And
it's a good job.
let me just add on that, because I was in this business, just take the Aurora Library. It takes 4 or 5 hours to just run an inspection there because of all the heat detectors and so forth that are up behind the stages. And
Right.
it's not just going in and looking and saying, you're okay.
Right.
We also do the inspections on the alarm systems, the home alarm systems as well, when you install, correct?
No.
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 Lionel does.
Yeah,
Lionel does the initial, but.
I'd like to correct my statement earlier. I said that the Assistant Chief Schmader inspected my house and my alarms. It was not, it was Lionel Finch. So I want to correct that.
Mayor, you wanted to add?
Thank you, yes. Following up on Mr. Hatridge's comment, these are often not just one-stop inspections either. We fortunately have new businesses coming into the city with some frequency over the last year and a half, and a couple of those businesses have required multiple visits and multiple discussions and negotiations and et cetera. So it's not just once and he's on to the next one. It can take quite a while.
Exactly right.
Thank you.
Mr. Vaca?
Thank you. This is a different subject. We got a couple of minutes.
We don't have to use it all, Mr. Vaca.
Oh, here we go.
It's not a long one.
I
It's-
really try to plan these so that there's
It's
enough
either-
time between meetings to be able to
It's
prep
either
for
that
the
or else
next
the
meeting.
NBA game tonight. What do you want to do? No, real quick. This is in reference to the Jog Lake rezoning. Ms. Januska, I received a call tonight. A property owner bought 8 lots up there, and he was told he couldn't build on them. I thought that restriction stayed the same as an R5. Am I correct or am I wrong?
It's been changed to a mixed use,
Okay.
but they can come in and we can do a plan review. They shouldn't have been told they could not build. We'll go through a plan review and work on the best plan to fit within that mixed-use district.
Okay, he was told he had to have 2 acres or more. Does that sound right? I never heard that before.
No, the mixed-use district
He just wants to build
requires,
houses on those 50-foot lots.
requires 10 acres. It can go down to 5. There is the aspect to do, variances and smaller plan reviews in front of Planning Commission, to look at that later.
But the the original, if I remember right, the residents up there that have 50-foot lots, because it's an R5 and you're in a mixed-use district and the homes are okay for an R5, that they could build on these lots. These are particular old Jog Lake Park lots. They can build a house on each lot in the Fairview Avenue area.
Mr. Januska.
Fairview Avenue was rezoned to mixed use. It's
Correct.
not R5. Those are existing non-conforming lots that will be looked at by Planning Commission when they come in with a development plan.
So, well, when you talk about a development plan, you're talking about a developer. Let's say I buy a lot up there and I want to build a house. I'm just myself, 1 lot, 1 house. Is that okay, or is it not okay?
Mr. DePiero, you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Vaca, why don't we talk with your property owner, determine exactly where the property's at, what the stipulations are, what they want to do, and we'll advise them properly.
Well,
And we'll let you know.
Okay, that's fine, we'll do that, but I
It
think.
would depend on when they bought it and what it's zoned now and what and there are some variations, but we can talk to them and advise them properly.
Okay, we'll get back with you on that one, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Short, see, I told you.
Yeah. I was going to give you 30 more seconds, and that was it. Okay. Seeing no further, Mr.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, thank you. It's been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.